They got confused concerning creation. فَتَشَابَهَ الْخَلْقُ عَلَيْهِمْ. Say, O Muhammad, to them with certainty, قُلِ اللَّهُ خَالِقُ كُلِّ شَيْءٍ. It is Allah who is the creator of all things. وَهُوَ الْوَاحِدُ الْقَهَّارُ. Look at the endings of the ayat. Look at why Al-Wahid Al-Qahhar. Why? Because He is Al-Wahid, the one who has no partner or similar being. Or He is Wahid. No one can be like Him. Al-Qahhar, the one who overwhelms and subdues all His creation. So do not feel that unless you can really go and become like God, you are not really good enough. As people say, we want to make a superhuman being, the post-human phase. Now, سبحان الذي خلق الأزواج كلها مما تنبت الأرض ومن أنفسهم ومما لا يعلمون ومما لا يعلمون. Praise be to Allah, who created all pairs from what the earth brings forth and from themselves, and that which they will never know. Look at this. خلق الأزواج. خلق الأزواج. That Allah created everything in pairs, male and female. And to make something from just one gender is contrary to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is it. Islamically speaking, cloning is unlawful. But what if they clone a human being? Let them. Let them. What do you mean let them? Do you mean that it is unlawful and then Allah said خلق الأزواج, pairs, and they will create? What about the ruh of the cloned individual? وَمِمَّا لَا يَعْلَمُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one with whose will all things come to existence. If they will clone, let them. Allah will provide the soul even for that which He does not approve of. Two people commit adultery. It's haram. Allah does not approve of that. But Allah will provide the soul. Allah will provide the soul. That is a human being. We know the story of the woman who came to the Prophet ﷺ and said, Ya Rasulullah, I committed adultery. You know, and this child is the product. He said, go, wean him for 2 years, and then give him to your family, and then you come for punishment for what you have done. But there's no mistake of that baby. That baby is to be weaned and reared and supported by the community or the family of that woman. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will provide the soul the same as He will provide the soul. No human being will ever live on earth without a soul from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the consequence is that those who will clone for whatever purposes, they have to be answerable to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they have to testify in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Now, cloning can be done for so many reasons, but to produce a genetically specific troops for certain armies that can tolerate easily sleep deprivation because of certain genes that they have, that they can really fight and overcome their targets with no emotion whatsoever, without necessarily suffering the post-trauma syndrome, as we hear about troops coming back from the Gulf after engaging in the Gulf War, the first and the second, and really suffering that post-trauma syndrome and feeling all the terrible consequences of war, they are already experimenting of the possibility of cloning such a super soldier who can go and do everything and anything. They are talking about the possibility of cloning specific individuals to take over the human race and say that then we will dispose of all those weaklings and we will have the earth inhabited by those super races. But the thing is, those who are experimenting with that and making those superhuman beings will be disposed of themselves, because they will be the humans who made those superhumans. But if they don't mind, fine. If humans think that anything we can think of, we have to make. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Iblis made that promise, He said, Iblis made that promise, you will be able to take yourselves to destructions. Fine, because you wanted to be so arrogant that we humans are so powerful. Fine, bring your own destruction. We are bringing our own destruction by polluting the air that we breathe, by polluting the food that we eat, by polluting the water we drink. What do we want after that? There's already research to produce that superhuman being that is not affected by these things, that will not really necessarily need the air we breathe. Or if that superhuman breathes that air that is polluted by industry and power, it's fine, they can tolerate it because they have the genes to deal with that pollution. These things are real, they are taking place right now. They want to do that. This is life and the fascination of life and the manipulation of life. But cloning can be, if used properly, benefit humans. How can it benefit humans? The word cloning need not be understood as a bad word. When you say television, the internet, you don't right away say, oh, this is bad. I don't have a television at home. I don't have internet. No, this is really, I mean, why? This is not right. Your children are living in an environment where television and the internet are part of their lives. But what you should do is to be able to establish a certain program where the things you watch on television are responsible programming. And what you surf on the internet is also responsible surfing. And you will not really just let go of your children to go into chat rooms that will suck them into irresponsible environments. No, you've got to really help them select what is right, what is wrong. So cloning can be good. There is good cloning. You know how? You can put a good gene to produce certain medications. Those genes can be put into bacteria, let's say, and allow the bacteria to be cloned very fast, and then produce from that gene all the medicine that may take tens of years to produce, and then use that medicine that was produced by bacteria. You can clone embryos and make certain tissues that could be injected to treat diabetes, for example. Already they announced about a month ago success in Britain in treating diabetes by forming the cells that produce insulin and by implanting those cells into the humans suffering from diabetes. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. And the Islamic Jurisprudence Council of North America, as well as in Europe, as well as in Saudi Arabia, and in Al-Azhar, have already said that stem cell research is Islamically feasible. Before I read you the exact wording, because this is a fatwa, I don't want to paraphrase. I would like to say it as produced. What is a stem cell research? What is a stem cell? Please forgive me, I need to quickly simplify things so much. Let's take Brother Naeem. Brother Naeem's eye has cells. His skin has cells. His liver has cells. His hair has cells. All of the cells in his body are exactly the same. The same cell. But some cells produced his skin. It's a skin. Some cells produced the liver. Some cells produced his eyes. How come? It's the same cell. Because the 46 chromosomes in every cell, when it comes to the eyes, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as believers, we say, they want to say it did that on its own randomly by chance. Fine, no problem. Say whatever you want to say. But those chromosomes recognized that they are in the region of the eyes. So what they did, they twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted to cover every information except the information that will make eyes. And then some agents came to that information and started to make eyes, because everything else is closed. That's it, closed. Where it is the region of the liver, everything got tight and closed, except that part that makes a liver. The same cell, the same chromosomes, the same everything, same information. And it made a liver, it made a heart, it made skin, it made that. So it's the same cells. Now, what we really talk about stem cells, that in the embryo, before the embryo starts to close those chromosomes, it still is capable. It has cells that can make anything. By taking those cells, we can really, and the technology is available, to turn and close and open whatever information we want. We want a heart, we close everything else and just keep that and grow a tissue that is like and by the way, it happened. And you may say, I wish I really can find it, but please trust me. If I find it, I'll read it to you, because they made it. They made a heart tissue that started actually to vibrate. And we said that there's a difference between ruh and soul and live tissue. They were able to make, because the ability to, and we have a cardiologist who can testify to that, Dr. Khalid, the ability is innate in the tissue. It is there to basically start to pump. They were able to do that. And those who are really interested, I have that paper with me. So, stem cell research is test tube babies for people who cannot have children the normal way. They take many eggs after they give the mother that fertility drug to collect as many eggs as possible, and they bring the sperm of the husband. And this is lawful, and scholars of Islam said it is nothing wrong with that. This is just technology, which is fine, as long as the sperms are from the father, not from a sperm bank. Because there are sperm banks. And there are people who say, oh, I don't want really, I just go and buy sperms that can produce Madonna. Or can produce, who do you want to produce? What do you want? La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. Who wants to? Okay. That's my nephew. You know, he loves himself. I love him too. Okay. So you can, no, this is haram. This is the same as adultery, but in a more advanced way. But if it is the husband and the wife, so they bring the eggs and they bring those sperms and they fertilize as many of them as possible and they implant as many embryos as possible and they take the rest and they can do one of two things with them. They can either deep freeze them or they throw them down the drain. That's what they do. Now, if they are able, and that's why you hear about those who took fertility drugs and test tube babies that they had sextuplets or quintuplets or whatever. Why? Because they implanted many embryos and so happened that all of them grew. So, we say that, and Islam says, if instead of throwing them down the drain, you take them, the embryos, and you do stem cell research to make tissues that could either be spare parts for, to treat certain diseases or to do certain things with them. Islam says no problem. However, there's another source of stem cells found now in the bone marrow of human beings. There are cells in bone marrow that can still differentiate. The word is differentiate, which means grow into something else in the bone marrow. Now, what did the scholars say? They said the following. Number one, they said, no in vitro fertilization. And I have to say that there is a student sitting here who asked me not to say who she is, but I'm really so warmed in my heart that there's lots of communication from many who send me emails and ask questions. And this university student is telling me that she's really fascinated by embryology. And she would like to go into embryology and do in vitro fertilization if given the chance. And she asked me the ethical question, what if, as a scientist who is obliged to serve the public, what if somebody brings me sperms that are not the sperms of the husband of that, or if she is not married, or if she is gay, or if she is, homosexual, I should say, or whatever. Am I to go ahead and do in vitro, by the way, means, in vitro is a Latin word that means in the lab, in the بالمختبر, يعني to bring the sperms and work away from the body. In the body, it's called in vivo. But in vitro, it is in vitro fertilization. They do it, then they take it and they put it in the womb. So she's asking the question, is it Islamically acceptable to serve the public? Or if I say, no, I'm not going to do that, will I be responsible? What is the answer? Look what the scholars say. No in vitro fertilization may be performed for the purpose of supplying stem cells for research. So you do not start by saying, okay, can you please donate some sperms? Can you donate some eggs? We would like to do research. And then we start to do research only for that purpose. No, you don't do that. But whenever IVF, in vitro fertilization, is needed to deal with the problem of infertility, the sperm and ovum must be taken from a married couple. Number 3, as fertility clinics fertilize more than one ovum, this is it, to increase the chances of success, unused embryos that will be destroyed may be used for research, provided that this is done in the first few days after fertilization, and provided further that the unused embryos are donated without financial return. That you don't say, well, this is my chance, I can sell those unused ones, I can make some bucks. No, you can't do that. You cannot sell those for research or whatever. So instead of throwing them, you can use them for research. So you do not just take them and do research. No. If there's extra from clinics for in vitro fertilization, fine, you can use them, otherwise no. What's my answer to that young Muslimah who would like to know, what shall I do? Any thoughts? Is she to say no? Let me ask another question. Let's say, and we do have medical doctors attending, if, let's say, a girl who has been irresponsible and got married outside, got pregnant outside marriage, and comes to the doctor and says, I want you to abort the fetus I'm carrying and I don't want my parents to know about it. Would he or she do that? She can refer that person to others. She will not do it herself because she can actually maneuver without having to break any regulations, any laws, by saying, I am not going to do it. There are others who will do that, you go to them. So I will say to that young Muslimah, if you are fascinated and you would like to help infertile couples to do in vitro fertilization, among other things, as a scientist, as a medical doctor, please go ahead, but you have the option of saying, please go to someone else because I cannot do it for you. Okay, that is the answer. So that's stem cell research. I was planning that today we will conclude, this part of the series, but still we did not talk about abortion. Life. Can you, whenever you decide, end life? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in two places, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَوْلَادَكُمْ. What? Is it min or خشية? خشية إملاق. نحن نرزقهم وإياكم. ولا تقتلوا أولادكم من إملاق. نحن نرزقكم وإياهم. لا إله إلا الله. Even one letter at the end of a word expresses the exactness in the expression of the Quranic ayat. And I'll explain that inshallah. Abortion. And I'd like to ask a question. I wrote it, I asked myself this question. I'd like to think about it until next time. What is the difference between abortion, which is destroying a fetus, and cloning, which is making a fetus? Think about it until next time. We will talk inshallah about birth control. I'm not ready yet. Oh Allah, please wait on me. When I am ready, I'll let you know. I'm trying to put it in such terms that are used on a daily basis. I'm not ready, wait. Can we? What about euthanasia? Helping people to die. I had enough. I'm ready to go now. Can we do that? And others, among many attempts to manipulate life. Before we will get to that part now that will take us into that exit we call death. What happens? How do we die? What's the process? What happens after we die? Is it the same reality, or they tell us that there will be a window open in the wall of the grave and we will see our place in Jannah? They tell us that our soul is taken immediately to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to have an audience immediately after it is captured. And then it is brought back to attend the funeral, its own funeral. And there are certain things that will help that soul. There are certain things that will hurt that soul. They tell us that we keep visiting the body. They tell us that everything in the body disintegrates except that tailbone, عجب الذنب. They tell us that when the day of judgment is about to start, a kind of rain falls. When it mingles with that sacrum tailbone, it starts to reform into something that is a body. And then the ruh comes to it. And then we are told that we will be raised from the graves naked. We are told that we will start to assemble while we are dazed. And then we will be assembled on this earth. Or is it a different earth? يوم تبدل الأرض غير الأرض. That it will be replaced with a different earth. إن الأرض يرثها عبادي الصالحون. يرثها. This earth will be inherited by the good servants of mine, Allah says. And then we will be waiting for judgment for about 50,000 years. Waiting. Why? And then one asks, isn't it a waste of this body to go and rot in earth? Why this waste in energy, in resources? Why, Allah, didn't you make something that we will continue from birth to this life, to the barzakh, to the hereafter, without wasting this beautiful body?